Hi guys, and welcome back to another video.
Hello.
So in today's video, we're going to be taking another look into the story of the Star Spangled Banner, but a more accurate one. So the video we watched previously, according to our comments, there was a lot of inaccuracies, some over-exaggeration.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to know, like, the real story behind how the national anthem came to be, and obviously with respect the true story, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't think there's much else to say. We're going to jump in. So this video is the accurate story behind the Star Spangled Banner. I can't remember who it's by, but we'll check at the end.
But it will be in the description.
Let's jump in.
Anyways.
Have you ever gone to an athletic event and as
Sadly,
someone was
Russell
singing
Simmons.
the national anthem, the people around you were not even paying attention? They didn't have their hand over their heart, they hadn't removed a hat from their head. Perhaps they were chatting with a friend and not even looking at the flag, just disengaged and disconnected. In a sense, by their casualness, they weren't just disrespecting the national anthem, they were disrespecting the men and women in the armed forces who have valiantly served our country. Those who've bled and died defending the freedoms of our nation. It is my belief that if you only knew the story behind the Star Spangled Banner, it would cause you to stand at attention, almost like a soldier yourself, with reverence and gratitude. You would sing the anthem with all of your heart, and in so doing, you would be telling the world how grateful you are to live in the greatest nation in the world, the United States of America. Let me tell you the story behind the Star Spangled Banner. There was a young lawyer by the name of Francis Scott Key who lived in Baltimore, Maryland in the early 1800s. At the time, our nation was engaged in vicious conflict with Britain. After the Revolutionary War, the British had suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of the United States, and up until 1814, they had been on the defensive. But in August 1814, determined not to be embarrassed again, the British saw their opportunity to get on the offensive. They exacted their revenge by capturing our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., chasing President Madison and his wife from the city, and burning many of our government buildings. Then the British headed to Baltimore, the nation's third most populated city, to attack a fort called Fort McHenry. Along the way, Britain had accumulated prisoners, and we know that some of the prisoners had been placed aboard those British warships. One of the prisoners was a man named Dr. William Beans. Dr. Beans had many prominent friends and neighbors who enlisted the services of one Francis Scott Key to negotiate with the British for his release. Francis Scott Key agreed and arranged to have Colonel John Skinner, American agent for prisoner exchange, accompany him. On the appointed day, the men rowed out in a little boat and boarded a British ship to secure the release of Dr. Beans. After nearly a week of negotiations, they were successful.
Sorry to stop it. That
That's
was
okay.
one of the first.
Yeah, so one of the first comparisons to the previous video is this was literally one prisoner versus like a whole ship full. And
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah,
I think
and
this
also
is,
the time as well. I think after the Revolutionary War, so it wasn't
Yeah,
like
so-
with the colonies, like the other.
yeah, so now
videos
it's the
seemed-
States, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other thing is it's McHenry rather than Henry. So
Yes.
this definitely seems a bit more accurate to history.
No. Or yeah.
It is accurate
From
to
what we've
history,
seen
from
in
what
the
we can tell.
comments as well. Yeah.
But let's carry on because it's
I'm
quite
just doing-
intriguing.
Yeah.
After nearly a week of negotiations, they were successful. That's the good news. The bad news is that the British decided that they were first going to attack Fort McHenry and that they wouldn't release any prisoner until after the fort had been destroyed. You see, Fort McHenry was a strategically located military base which was defended by 1,000 men. It stood on the end of a peninsula guarding the city of Baltimore, and the British knew that the defeat of Fort McHenry and its 1,000 men would serve as another demoralizing event for the Americans. So the plan of the British war fleet, which included some 16 to 19 warships, was to mercilessly fire their superior weapons and completely annihilate Fort McHenry. Then the British could send in its lighter ships up into the harbor and begin to bombard the rest of Baltimore. This is a critical moment in the history of our young nation. For even though we had become a sovereign nation in 1776, the United States was still fighting for total independence from the British due to Britain's interference in our expansion, trade, and other freedoms. On September 13, 1814, as morning dawned and as the haze hung over the ocean, the British war fleet was unleashed. Boom, 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 boom. For 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours. Boom, boom, the guns raged. The sound must have been deafening. Boom, boom, boom for 12 hours.
Can you imagine how horrendous that would be, though? Like, just being on the receiving end of that just onslaught. Like, it's like almost like an ending, isn't it?
Yeah, you obviously feel rather helpless if you can't fight back to an extent, with them being in the middle of
It must be pretty terrifying, like, because obviously they're too far out for you to really defend yourselves, like to deal
significantly
with them.
anyway, yeah.
And then obviously all you can do effectively, I guess, is just take shelter, really, and just repair what you can. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I do think from what I could tell, Fort McHenry was designed to obviously take such a barrage as well. So it's not just it's not the straw hut, it's like it's meant to take these barrages. It's there for a purpose. So naturally, I guess it does quite well. That's really
Guns raged. The sound must have been deafening. Boom, boom, boom for 12 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, for 24 hours. The British war fleet pounded Fort McHenry relentlessly with no relief in sight. The Americans inside Fort McHenry were unable to respond because their guns were not as powerful as the British artillery. Witnessing the bombardment, it must have looked like a spectacular fireworks display. Francis Scott Key, he paced the ship all night long, back and forth. At times, he could see the American flag in the illuminated red glare of each bomb. No doubt if he had seen a white flag waving, he would have known that the Americans were surrendering. But as long as he could see the red, white, and blue flag waving, he knew that the men inside that fort were not giving up. Don't you believe that there had to be some prisoners on board some of those warships who were wondering, is the flag still there? Is the flag still there? Is the flag still there? Because you see, that flag stood for the United States of America. It was that flag that stood for the freedoms that our nation cherishes today. It was that flag that stood for the men and women who died to give us our independence. Well, after more than 24 hours of constant bombardment, finally, there was silence. And as morning dawned on September 14th, 1814, when the heavy mist and the smoke from the gunfire had lifted, there, standing proudly, flying high above the rampart, blowing back and forth in the wind, was the huge 30-foot by 42-foot American flag. Major George Armistead, the commander of Fort McHenry, had commissioned a widow to make this flag. He wanted it to be so large that the British wouldn't have any trouble seeing it from the distance, waving proudly. Miraculously, the damage to the fort was minimal. Of the 1,000 soldiers, 4 were killed. The United States did not yield, and the British eventually withdrew from the Baltimore harbor, deeming the battle to be too costly. The tide of the war was reversed. There at the Battle of Fort McHenry, just a few months later, a peace treaty was signed between the United States and Britain. It was upon the release of the prisoners that Francis Scott Key made his way back into Baltimore. And after such a dramatic and emotional occasion, the young lawyer was inspired to pen the following words. "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? It is my prayer that whenever we see the flag, which represents the United States of America, and whenever we hear the words of the Star-Spangled Banner as it is sung, that we would stand in reverence for the miraculous events of that night in 1814, to honor the courageous men and women who have fought to keep our flag waving. May we always stand. May we always remove our hats. May we always place our hand over our hearts. And may we always sing with all of our heart as we give honor and respect to the flag and to those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for this great nation of ours, the United States of America.
I'm just going to pause it there. I think we're nearly done.
I think it's nearly done, yeah.
I didn't. It felt disrespectful because it was very captivating and intriguing, so I didn't want to stop it. But also, the points he was making were quite important. So I was finding it hard to find a good place to pause it. But the story is very intense, isn't it? And for me, like just hearing it, I've already heard like a kind of the other version,
a more dramatized, I guess, version.
The previous version we watched was definitely a little bit more dramatic and
embellished.
Embellished. Things a bit
conversations and the number of ships. I remember.
But obviously, the general gist of it is kind of the same, but obviously without the inaccuracies. But the meaning of it, like, it just hits you, doesn't it? It's like, I don't know, even not being American, you do kind of get that sense of pride, like. Even when he was reading through the note, which effectively has become the lyrics, like I was getting tingles on the back of my neck. Like, you just can't help it. I think it's such a powerful, a powerful story, a powerful meaning behind how it's come about. It's
and honestly,
strong, isn't it?
I don't believe this story needed any embellishing. Like, if this is the accurate, true story of how many ships there were and how many people died and everything else that was embellished in the other one, it really didn't need it. Like, the story, it's just strong in itself, and it's like touching.
Having listened to the other story and then kind of knowing, but not, knowing roughly what happened, then hearing it again, it's had exactly the same effect on me, just by, without the over dramatic stuff.
Absolutely.
And it's just.
I think the only thing that made it better in the other video was listening to the actual anthem at the end.
Yeah.
Just that they included that at the end.
Yeah. But it's.
Or we could.
At some point, we'll have a listen to. Because I know some of you have suggested some various versions of the.
Sung by different artists.
I think Whitney Houston's come out. Pentronics. I can't remember the name of that band. I've heard of some of their music before, but I can't remember. It's eluding me.
Yeah, but also like the message at the end.
Yeah.
Stand up for your flag.
And I think even in the thing, it's
the
like
anthem.
The last few words of the anthem as well. For the land of the brave and free, is it? That's not the last ones, is it? But it's in there.
Yes, I think this one. It's at the end.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. It's like an open-ended. Sorry, I lost the mouse. I'm trying to scroll back. Where is it?
No, I think you're still in there.
I've got the mouse upside down. No wonder I can't get to where I'm going. The mouse is upside down. Okay, sorry. Right, I'm just gonna scroll back just briefly.
Do you want to see the?
Just want to read.
The word.
Yeah, sorry. This is awful. There we go. Yeah. So.
Yeah, or the land of the free, or the end, the home of the brave.
Is that the end, or does it continue? I don't.
No, I think the anthem itself finishes with that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because it is a question mark. So it literally ends on a question.
That's quite interesting.
But it's that obviously the whole anthem is very powerful. And it hits you. It makes you patriotic. We're not even American, and we're ready to enlist.
We wanted the flag to. I
think that final verse or final sentence is very powerful, you know, land of the free and home of the brave. Like, I feel that's just so meaningful as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what America stands for.
Exactly. Well. That's when you think of USA, that's basically what you think of.
I'm just going to get back to roughly.
I think that's.
Oh no, I think we.
There's a pledge at the end, I think.
I am not going to miss it.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, we'll continue the video and then we'll sign off even.
Ours, the United States of America.
Powerful message though, isn't it?
Yeah. And I believe
I think that concludes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I believe the pledge is what it's being done in schools and
I think
colleges.
yeah, I've heard of this where, you know, it's like hand on heart, isn't it? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United. I think
the first couple of verses or sentences.
I think it's something for me that I've seen in movies where kids do it, but I don't really.
The wording
we don't really know how
familiar.
Yes,
because we have heard it as well, but yeah, not the second part for me.
No, I mean, obviously we've talked about the video, so we don't need to go back over that so much. But I think that honestly, the truthful video that we've just watched is a lot more powerful than the embellished one. Although the embellished one is a nice story and it's kind of like certain bits are more dramatic.
Yeah, well, obviously we didn't know any better, so that was amazing and touching when we listened to it. Yeah. But this had exactly the same.
Yeah. I'm almost glad that this didn't have the anthem at the end because, like, I think I get a bit emotional to be honest because it's such a strong.
It's strong. Yeah, it's a powerful sort of story behind it.
It makes you, to be honest, it makes you want to stand up for your country, and I can see like how it can make people patriotic, and like to be honest, it's just nice that you guys have so much pride in your country.
Yeah,
to be honest, because I would say that. In England, it's a bit of a dying trait these days. But yeah,
maybe in the younger generation a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very refreshing. So we hope you enjoyed the video, guys. And thanks for watching. It hits you
intense.
In the feels, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But until the next one, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.